I've said of art that it is revolutionary, that it confers agency, that it invites participation and interpretation, creating a space for meaning to flourish, that it has, in Anne Lauterbach's words, the power to change our senses of ourselves as agents in the world, to show us how we might shift from passive spectators or consumers to active participants, interpreters, innovators. What I've said of art, I now apply to educating and teaching, making only the slightest distinction between the two. Staying firmly with the power of art to decenter, to turn us around, I turn again to Elaine Scarry. This willingness continually to revise one's own location is the basic impulse underlying education. One submits to other minds, teachers, in order to increase the chance that one will be looking in the right direction when a comet makes its sweep through a certain patch of sky. By perpetuating beauty, institutions of education help incite the will toward continued creation, or, choosing my own words, what these educational moments energize is the will to a continual making and remaking of the world and of our own selves, and by that remaking to lay claim to the right to choose, to dissent, to question, to unsettle agreed upon interpretations of the world, or what Milan Kundera in The Art of the Novel calls, in caps, totalitarian truth. To put some chewable substance on the bones of these ideas of making, of remaking, of choice, I turn again to story for its power to do exactly that. And again, I choose a child, as Sarah did, and not accidentally, for I suspect what stiffens my resolve and yours when tyrannical truth is, as it is now, on unfettered rampage, is most reliably and fundamentally the children. Their right to well-being, their right to a perpetuation of that beauty which impels wonder and passion. This time the story involves a boy of 10 and a project he undertook, to sew a stuffed monkey. I'll call him Sam. Sam had chosen the project and the pattern himself. He had selected the materials. He also brought to the project considerable sewing experience he had under his belt. But even so, sewing the monkey was complicated. There were gussets to be contended with. It was hard not to make mistakes when joining the limbs to the torso in a way that was reasonably invisible, you know. It required much ripping out and redoing. It took a long time. Watching from the periphery just occasionally, I sometimes stopped for a moment to offer what I hoped were encouraging words. No seamstress myself, I had nothing else to offer him. Then one day when I was supervising the yard, there he was, the completed project in hand. It was impressive, and I said so, pointing out how he had successfully conquered those darn gussets. Flashing a small smile, he accepted my praise. That wasn't the end of it. Taking the monkey out of my hands, he showed me one of the legs was, as he put it, not right. Using the other leg, which passed his standard of rightness, as evidence. Taking another look at the offending leg, he said it isn't right. And then added, I ripped it out and did it over twice, and it still isn't right, but it'll do. It will do. In those 3 words, affirming the sufficiency of the monkey, mistakes and all, I heard the voice of the artisan, objective, confident, holding out the promise of more projects to come. Then flipping the monkey to show its tail, he said I didn't like the tail in the pattern. It was stiff, so I decided to finger weave the tail. With that, he began swinging the monkey, setting that long tail swooping, and I can't tell you how that loosely woven tail brought that monkey to life, lifting it from project to artwork. A choice had been made. Ditch the pattern, give this thing some jazz never anticipated by the Woman's Day pattern book. I've reflected on this incident more than once. It seemed to me then, and does now, that what I had witnessed wasn't merely skill coupled with artistic flair. This was what I think of as embodied knowledge, and embodied knowledge in action. That is knowledge internalized in the acts of making and choosing and remaking, wrought from love of the work itself, a work sufficient to itself. Speaking to that kind of learning that is meaningful in and of itself, the philosopher Martin Heidegger uses as an example someone learning cabinet making, an apprentice, in his words. The apprentice's learning is not mere practice to gain facility in the use of tools, nor does he merely gather knowledge about the customary forms of the things he is to build. If he is to become a true cabinet maker, he makes himself answer and respond above all to the different kinds of wood and to the shapes slumbering in the wood, to all the hidden riches of its nature. Drawing the implication, he says, in fact, that relatedness to wood is what maintains the whole craft. For without that relatedness, the craft will never be anything but empty busy work, determined exclusively by business concerns. And issues this warning: every handicraft, all human dealings, are constantly in that danger. The writing of poetry is no more exempt from it than its thinking. I arrive now full circle. The child's relatedness to sewing, the apprentice's relatedness to wood, the poet's relatedness to language are not different from the teacher's relatedness to the child's receptivity to the muchness, the beauty of the world, to the child's capacity for valuing this over that, for choosing, for making a mark on the world, for the child's desire to be looking in the right direction when a comet makes its sweep through a certain patch of sky. The teacher's relatedness to the child is no different, really, from that of the cabinet maker's apprentice. To teach in revolutionary mode comes not from mere practice to gain facility in the use of reading techniques or other tools of the trade, such as rubric writing or curriculum mapping or test preparation and so on. Nor does it rely merely on gathering knowledge of the traditions and customs of school practice. To teach in revolutionary mode, the aspiring teacher commits herself or himself to relatedness to children. That is, to be a seer of children, as a cabinet maker's apprentice strives to be a seer of the different kinds of wood. Just so, the teacher in revolutionary mode has embodied the art and the craft of attending and responding to the child's interests and choices, the child's dreams and passions, that is, to the hidden riches of the child's nature. I take this a step further. The teacher in revolutionary mode, the teacher teaching revolution, sees and responds to each child as a work of art. And here I turn to the words of another philosopher, Maurice Merleau-Ponty. A novel, poem, picture, or musical work are individuals, that is, beings in which the expression is indistinguishable from the thing expressed. It is in this sense that our body is comparable to a work of art. It is a focal point of living meanings, not the function of a certain number of variable terms. In the recently published prospect book, Jenny's Story, in one of a series of 3 essays titled collectively, Jarring Perception, I draw the implications of Merleau-Ponty's likening of the child to a work of art. In my own words, the comparison of the body to a work of art, a source of meanings extending beyond itself, for which it is the focal point, signals a radical departure from usual ways of seeing the child or ourselves. What has marred the conceptualization of the child as whole is the tendency to compose that wholeness from discrete parts, the mental part, the social part, the emotional part, and so on. All in the interest, and this is a good and positive thing, all in the interest of preventing failure to recognize that there is more to the child than mental competency, that nutrition and the child's well-being are primary, Continuing, I note that though this is a useful and indeed laudatory aim, where it lacks is that it misses the potency for the human drive for meaning. Or as I say it in the essay, the passion for living fully on the cusp of life, the burning intensity of desire. And then these key words, most significant, it misses the body. Replete in its gestural expressiveness, missing the body, it misses play as the generative channel for the child's passions, those lived meanings to which, as Merleau-Ponty says, we are condemned. Now, condemned is a strong word. To be condemned brooks no option. What I understand Merleau-Ponty to be saying, using this strong, indeed decentering language, is that the desire for things to make sense, even when they don't seem to, married to the strong desire that whatever it is that attracts and drives desire matters, even when that may be called into doubt, is overwhelming in its urgency and its implication. And for this reason, for things not to make sense, for things not to matter, undoes intention, aim, purposes, unravels the web of being. With that kind of unraveling, hope of the future vanishes. Educationally, to start from the child's passion requires at a minimum what Scarry calls a radical decentering, for to start from the child's passion sets teaching down in a new location, turned in unaccustomed directions. To start from the child's passions turns attention away from learning as external to the child, something requiring instruction at every turn, something that must be imposed on the child. Reoriented to the child's desire, attention is directed to particularizing those passions, to where it is in the world the child seeks meaning, to which, being human, she is condemned, and the significance, the value of what he encounters in his search. Attention is relocated to the mediums, the stories, the themes, roomy enough to channel her desires, spacious enough for him to find his place in the world, sturdy enough to bear each child's weight, bridging them from the here and now to a future not yet foretellable, but beckoning, holding promise of more to come. To learn the art and craft of teaching in revolutionary mode is all at the same time exhilarating and dangerous, meaningful and exhausting, fulfilling and unfinishable. Like all arts, teaching in revolutionary mode in kinship with Sam's monkey yields no tried and true results. As is true of the practice of all arts, to practice the art of teaching is necessarily to make mistakes, to be confronted with difficult, at times seemingly impossible questions and choices, with marginalization, with setbacks, with oppression at the hands of those who hold power. I don't need to tell a single person in this room how teachers who buck the oppressive mandates, the tyrannical truth of those currently wielding power, are turned on, ostracized, investigated, now there's a word for you, threatened, and sometimes driven from their jobs. Yet that said, here you are, and here, still vital and strong, is a program dedicated to educating teachers to be seers of children, to teach in revolutionary mode, even now. Here is a program that has earned the right to speak of teaching as an art. And yes, even now, even as tyrannical truth rules with an iron fist, aspiring teachers do still choose this revolutionary path. Is this easy? No. Where then is courage found? Where is courage found to hold firm to the conviction that education in schools can be revolutionized, that teaching can be an art, that minds and hearts and heads can be turned around? Where is courage found to stand firm against the degradation of teaching, of education. Where is courage found to hold firm to relatedness to children in the knowledge that absent that relatedness, teaching degrades to empty busywork? Where is courage found to accept, like Sam, that there will be forced compromises, and those, like mistakes, are not the end of the story, that it is possible to continue, to stand firm, to remain even so a seer of children, alert to every opportunity that may present itself, however tiny, for choice, for play, for storytelling, for pursuit of passions. Now, any generalized response to these questions would demean them. The story of where the courage is found, the story of what it is to be a teacher in the here and now of tyrannical truth, is only tellable but through the particularized stories of those who daily face the challenges, the struggles of a teaching life. And that's a life known to everyone in this room. This time, it's going to be stories from 4 teachers who, like many in this room, chose the revolutionary path to becoming a teacher. 4 teachers who, even at this busy time of year, have made the time to map for us their teaching lives. I'm going to introduce them in the order they will speak, including only the year they graduated and their current position. And then each panelist will begin her story with experiences in the Art of Teaching program. From that starting point, though each story will map a teaching journey particular to the teller, each will include, I know, turning point moments and, as it applies, hard times. You know the kind of times when it is a struggle to hang on even to fragments of your own values for children. Each will tell as well what it was in those circumstances that made it possible to go on, and will offer her personal reflections on what it is to practice the art of teaching, and in light of that, what it is to be a teacher. As the panelists speak, one will speak and then just move the microphone to the next person without interruption. When we come to the end of that, I'll try to pull together just a very few main themes, and then perhaps be able to take very short comment from people in the room, the kind of short comment that's about a sentence long. And then what we are hoping is that people will be prompted to talk with each other following and to share their stories with each other. So the panelists are, in order of speaking.
First we have to thank you.
Oh.